Your eyes open, not because you want them to, because your body has decided that sleep is no longer possible. The cold has found its way through everything, through the coarse fabric covering you, through the thin barrier between your body and the floor, through the walls themselves. You don't know what time it is. There are no clocks here, no phones to check, no gentle glow of a digital display. Just darkness, thick and complete, broken only by the faintest suggestion of gray light creeping through gaps in the wooden structure around you. You lie still for a moment, trying to orient yourself. The surface beneath you feels wrong, too hard, too uneven. Something prickles against your skin through your clothing. Straw, old and compressed, offering almost no cushioning between you and the packed earth below. Earth, not a mattress. Not a floor made of wood or tile. Just dirt, hardened by years of footsteps, now serving as the foundation for everything above it. This is not a dream. This is not a historical reenactment you signed up for. You have somehow awakened in medieval Europe, and the day that stretches before you will be unlike anything you've ever experienced. As consciousness fully returns, so do the sensations. The smell hits you first, a mixture of smoke, unwashed bodies, damp straw, and animals. It's not overpowering, but it's inescapable, filling your nostrils with every breath. Then the sounds. Breathing that isn't yours. Several sources of it, actually, coming from different directions in the darkness. The soft shuffle of an animal, you can't yet see what kind, and then somewhere to your left. A cough from across the room, dry and rattling. No one speaks. Movement is gradual, reluctant, as if everyone is negotiating with their body for just a few more moments of rest. You sit up slowly and immediately your back protests. Pain radiates from your lower spine, a deep ache that suggests you've been lying in this position for hours. Your shoulders are stiff. Your neck cracks as you turn your head. Every joint seems to have an objection to movement. And then you feel it, an itch along your ribcage. Then another at your hairline, then your ankle. Your hand moves instinctively to scratch, and you realize with growing horror that these sensations aren't random. There are things living on you. Small things, moving things, lice, fleas, parasites that treat human bodies as landscapes to inhabit. In your time, this would be cause for immediate alarm, for medical intervention, for thorough washing and treatment. Here, it's simply Tuesday. Everyone itches, no one comments on it. Scratching is as common and unremarkable as breathing. You look around as your eyes continue adjusting to the dim light. The structure you're in is small, much smaller than any room you've lived in. The ceiling is low enough that standing fully upright would be risky. Rough wooden beams, blackened by years of smoke exposure, crisscross above you at varying heights. The walls are not solid. They're woven branches plastered with a mixture of mud, clay, straw, and what you suspect is animal dung. Cracks run through the plaster like spider webs, and you can see daylight, or the promise of it, peeking through several gaps. There are no windows, just these gaps. No glass exists in this dwelling. The air inside is barely warmer than outside, your breath still visible in faint clouds. Near the center of the room, a fire pit sits surrounded by stones. The fire has died to barely glowing embers, a few thin wisps of smoke rising toward a hole in the roof above. That hole is the only ventilation, the only way for smoke to escape. Except it doesn't escape efficiently. Much of it lingers, creating a permanent haze in the upper portion of the room. Your eyes water slightly. Your throat feels scratchy. This is normal here. Chronic respiratory problems are so common that they're not even considered problems, just the way bodies are. You notice the other inhabitants now. Shapes in the darkness, becoming clearer as dawn approaches. Several people ranging from adults to children, each on their own crude sleeping mat. And animals. A goat stands near the far wall, watching you with alien eyes, calmly chewing. Chickens roost on a beam, their heads tucked under wings. The animals aren't intruders. They live here. Their body heat has helped keep everyone alive through the night. Their presence also represents wealth, security, survival. Too valuable to be left outside where they might be stolen or killed. You swing your legs to the side and place your feet on the ground. Not a floor. Ground. Bare earth. Compressed and smoothed by decades of use. Slightly damp to the touch, cold against your skin. Standing requires careful attention to the ceiling height. You remain slightly hunched, instinctively protecting your head from the beams above. Your stomach announces itself with a low growl. Hunger here is different from the hunger you've known. It's not, "I'm ready for breakfast," hunger. It's, "I haven't had enough food in a while, and my body is demanding fuel," hunger. Sharp, insistent, impossible to ignore. You move toward the fire pit, guided by instinct and the faint glow of embers. Someone has carefully arranged them before sleeping, banking the fire to preserve it through the night. Starting a fire from nothing is difficult and time-consuming here, so keeping one alive is a valuable skill. You kneel, mindful of the smoke that immediately stings your eyes, and blow gently on the embers. They respond, brightening from dull gray to orange, heat radiating outward. You add small twigs from a pile beside the hearth, then slightly larger sticks as flames begin to curl upward. The fire grows, and with it, the light. The room becomes more visible. You can see the poverty clearly now. There is almost nothing here. No furniture to speak of, a rough bench, a stool, a few wooden pegs driven into walls for hanging things. No decorations, no books, no possessions beyond the absolute essentials. A few clay pots, some wooden bowls, carved by hand, their surfaces worn smooth by use. Baskets woven from reeds or grass. Everything here serves a function. Nothing exists for comfort or beauty. Near the fire, a wooden board holds what passes for breakfast. A loaf of bread, if you can call it that. It's dark, almost black in color, dense and heavy. This isn't made from refined wheat flour. It's barley or rye, or a mixture of whatever grains could be grown in poor soil with unpredictable weather. The grain wasn't carefully sifted. Husks, fragments of chaff, even small stones that escaped removal during grinding. All of it is mixed into the dough. You pick up the loaf, feels like a weapon. You tear a piece away and it resists, requiring genuine force. Chewing is work. The texture is coarse, gritty, the flavor bitter and flat. But you eat it, because this is what exists, because hunger doesn't care about taste. A cup sits nearby, filled with a pale liquid. Ale. Weak, sour, barely alcoholic. You drink it not because it's pleasant, but because it's safer than water. The brewing process involves boiling, which kills things that water drawn from wells or streams might contain, though no one here understands why. They only know that people who drink ale stay healthier, so everyone drinks it. From infancy onward, the taste is irrelevant. As you eat, others begin to stir. No one speaks much. Words require energy, and energy is preserved for the work ahead. A woman, perhaps 40 years old, though she looks 60 by your standards, rises with visible difficulty. Her movements are stiff, careful, protecting joints that hurt constantly. A child, maybe 6 or 7, sits up and immediately begins scratching at their scalp with both hands. An older man coughs deep and wet, then spits into the fire. No one reacts. This is the morning routine. Someone opens the door, just a wooden panel on crude leather hinges, and cold air floods in. With it comes light, real light. Dawn has arrived. You step outside and the village reveals itself. Low structures dot the landscape, each similar to the one you just left. Thatched roofs covered in moss and organic growth. Walls that lean slightly, settling unevenly into the earth over years. Smoke rising from multiple dwellings, creating a collective haze that hangs over everything. The ground between buildings is mud, not roads, not paths, really. Just mud, worn into channels by endless foot traffic, rutted from cartwheels, mixed with animal waste and refuse. During dry weather, it becomes dust. During wet weather, it becomes thick, sucking mud that pulls at your feet with each step. Right now, it's somewhere between the two. Damp, slippery, treacherous. You hear the sounds of the village waking. A rooster announces the morning, though dawn already made that obvious. Somewhere a baby cries. A dog barks. A woman's voice calls out, though you can't understand the words. The language here is familiar yet strange. A version of English so old it might as well be foreign. People emerge from dwellings, moving with the slow determination of those who have work waiting and no choice but to face it. No one looks rested. Everyone looks worn. Before we continue deeper into this day, into the work, the pain, the relentless demands of medieval survival, I want to pause and ask you something. Where are you right now? Are you listening to this while commuting, while cooking dinner, while lying in bed in a climate-controlled room with a comfortable mattress? I'd genuinely love to know where in the world you're watching or listening from. Drop a comment below. Just your city, your country, even just my couch, if you prefer. And if you're finding this journey into the medieval world as fascinating as I am, do me a favor and hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. It helps me create more content like this, these deep explorations of historical experiences that bring the past to life. Now, let's continue. Because the day is beginning, and in medieval Europe, that means one thing: work. The tools are distributed without ceremony. You're handed something, a hoe, with a wooden handle worn smooth by countless hands. Its metal blade dulled by use, but still functional. This tool is valuable. More valuable than you might think. Iron is expensive here, difficult to produce, requiring specialized knowledge and significant fuel to maintain the forge temperatures needed. A tool like this represents days or even weeks of labor and trade value. You will treat it carefully, not because anyone tells you to, but because you see how everyone else handles their tools, with respect bordering on reverence. The walk to the fields begins. It's not far. The village exists specifically to serve the agricultural land surrounding it, so fields are close. But close is relative when you're already tired, and the day hasn't truly begun. The path is uneven. Your feet, covered in simple leather shoes that offer minimal protection and no support, feel every rock and root. Around you, others walk in silence. Men, women, older children, all moving toward the same destination. The youngest children and the elderly remain behind, assigned to tasks suited to their capabilities. Tending animals, collecting firewood, preparing food, mending tools. Everyone works. Age and gender determine the type of work, but no one is exempt. The fields stretch out before you, vast and demanding. They're not organized like modern farms. No neat, efficient rows created by machinery. Instead, you see strips. Long, narrow plots of land, each assigned to different families, all jumbled together in a system that seems chaotic, until you understand it's based on centuries of inheritance divisions and communal agreements. Some strips look healthier than others. Soil quality varies dramatically, even within small areas. Some sections are dark and rich. Others are pale, rocky, exhausted from overuse. Your strip is somewhere in the middle. Not the best land, not the worst. Just what you have. What you must make work. You approach it and the reality of what lies ahead settles over you like a physical weight. This isn't going to be light gardening. This isn't weekend hobby farming. This is intensive, body-destroying manual labor that will continue for hours, many hours, until the sun's position indicates it's time to stop. You bend forward, gripping the hoe, and begin. The blade bites into soil, turning it, breaking up clumps, preparing it for planting or clearing weeds from growing crops. The motion is simple. Lift, strike, pull. Lift, strike, pull. Simple, but brutal. Within minutes, you feel the strain. Your lower back begins to ache from the bent posture. Your shoulders burn from the repetitive motion. Your hands, unaccustomed to this work, quickly develop hot spots where blisters are forming. You pause to adjust your grip. No one stops. Everyone around you continues working with steady, mechanical efficiency. They've been doing this since childhood. Their bodies have adapted. Their minds have learned to disconnect from the discomfort, entering a state somewhere between consciousness and autopilot. You try to match their pace. You can't. Not yet. Your body isn't prepared for this intensity of sustained labor. Modern life, even with exercise, doesn't build the specific muscular endurance and pain tolerance required for medieval agricultural work. But you continue anyway, because stopping means hunger later. Because everyone else is working, and social pressure here is powerful. Because in this world, work is not something you choose. It's something you do, like breathing. The sun climbs higher. With it comes heat. The cold morning air that made you shiver earlier is gone, replaced by warmth that quickly becomes oppressive. Your clothing, rough wool that seemed merely uncomfortable this morning, is now soaked with sweat. Wool doesn't breathe. It insulates even when wet, trapping heat against your body. You're overheating, but there's no relief. No shade nearby, no breaks scheduled. Just work, continuing, relentless. Sweat runs into your eyes, stinging. It drips from your nose and chin. It soaks your hair, makes your scalp itch even more intensely than the lice already did. Your breathing becomes labored. Not from cardiovascular exertion, your heart could handle this pace, but from the sustained physical effort combined with heat stress. Around you, others show no signs of slowing. An older woman works steadily, her face weathered and deeply lined, her hands swollen at the knuckles, moving with practiced efficiency, despite obvious pain. A young man, probably not yet 20, works with grim determination, his jaw clenched, his movements aggressive as if fighting the earth itself. A girl, barely into her teens, labors alongside adults, keeping pace, her childhood something that ended years ago. You notice things you wouldn't have in your previous life. How everyone moves to protect certain parts of their body. The man favoring one leg slightly, compensating for an old injury that never healed properly. The woman who frequently straightens to stretch her back, face contorting briefly before she bends again. The universal way people shake out their hands, trying to restore circulation and relieve cramping. These are bodies that have been used hard, worn down by decades of labor, marked by injuries, illnesses, and deprivations that accumulated over time. No one complains. Complaining would change nothing. The work remains the same, whether you voice your suffering or not. So, silence prevails, broken only by the sounds of tools striking earth, the rustle of plants, the occasional grunt of effort. Time becomes strange. Without clocks, without the structured breakdown of hours and minutes, time is measured only by the sun's position and your body's deterioration. Has it been 2 hours? 3? You genuinely don't know. All you know is that your muscles are screaming, your hands are raw, your back feels like it might never straighten again, and the work continues. A blister on your palm bursts. The sudden sting makes you gasp. You look down to see raw, weeping skin where the blister was. No one offers sympathy. No one even notices. You wrap a piece of cloth around it, something you tore from your clothing, and grip the tool again. It hurts. It hurts more with each strike of the hoe, but you continue. Because everyone continues. Eventually someone calls out. Not loudly, just a word or two. Everyone stops, not for long, just a brief pause. Food appears from bags and pouches. More bread, a piece of onion, some water, warm and slightly murky. You eat standing because sitting would make it harder to stand again. The food barely registers as taste. You're just putting fuel in your body, trying to quiet the hunger enough to continue working. The break lasts perhaps 10 minutes, maybe 15. Then, without announcement, people return to work. You do too, because that's what happens here. The afternoon stretches endlessly. The sun reaches its peak, then slowly, so slowly, begins its descent. Your body has moved beyond pain into a strange numbness. Your muscles still work, but you're not fully aware of them anymore. Your mind has gone quiet. Thoughts reduced to simple, immediate things. Tool, earth, breath, repeat. This is the meditation of exhaustion, the place where conscious thought ceases because there's no energy left for it. You exist in the moment because the moment is all you can handle. Finally, the light begins to soften. Shadows grow longer. The heat eases slightly, and gradually people begin to slow, not stopping abruptly but winding down, like machines running out of power. Tools are gathered. Progress is assessed with a glance. How much was accomplished? How much remains for tomorrow? The walk back to the village is quiet. Everyone is too tired for conversation. Feet drag. Bodies move stiffly. You become aware of new pains. A twisted ankle you don't remember injuring. A bruise on your shin, a deep ache in your hips. The village appears ahead, smoke already rising from hearths, as early evening preparations begin. You feel something unexpected. Relief, yes, but also a grim satisfaction. You survived the day. Your body held together. You contributed. In this world, that's success. That's all success means. Not achievement or advancement. Just survival. Just making it to evening with enough strength left to wake up and do it again tomorrow. Inside the dwelling, the fire has been rebuilt. Someone, and probably an older family member who remained behind today, has tended it, added wood, kept it alive. The warmth is immediately noticeable after hours in the field. Your body, cooled by evening air during the walk home, begins to thaw. The relief is physical and profound. People settle in slowly, finding places to sit or lean, groaning softly as they lower themselves down. No one speaks much yet. Words will come later, when bodies have recovered slightly, when the immediate exhaustion has eased enough to allow for conversation. A pot hangs over the fire, suspended from a metal hook, its contents bubbling slowly. The smell reaches you. Grain, roots, herbs, if you're fortunate. Pottage. The fundamental meal of medieval peasant life? It's being prepared by an older woman, possibly a grandmother, her movements practiced and efficient despite arthritic hands. She stirs with a wooden spoon darkened by use, worn smooth by decades of contact with pots and hands. The pottage is simple. Whatever grains are available, barley, oats, boiled with water until they soften. Root vegetables added, onions, leeks, maybe turnips, dried peas or beans, if any remain from the previous harvest, herbs for flavor. Whatever grows locally and can be foraged. Meat is absent. Meat appears rarely, reserved for special occasions or when an animal dies unexpectedly. The rest of the time, this is what you eat. Grains and vegetables, day after day, year after year. Eventually, wooden bowls are distributed. Rough, uneven, carved from single pieces of wood, each one unique because each was made by hand. The pottage is ladled out carefully. Portions are modest but adequate, enough to refuel bodies for sleep and tomorrow's work, but not abundance. Never abundance. There's no surplus here. Every spoonful represents seed that was planted, crops that were tended, harvest that was gathered. Food is currency. Food is life. Nothing is wasted. You eat slowly, not from etiquette, but from necessity. Eating too quickly after a day of hard labor can cause nausea, cramping, vomiting. Your body needs time to process food after hours of minimal intake. The pottage is bland by your standards, No salt. Salt is expensive, reserved for preserving food when available at all. No spices. Those are luxuries for the wealthy, not peasants. Just the natural flavors of grain and vegetables, softened by boiling, barely seasoned. But it's warm, and it fills your stomach. And that's enough. More than enough. Around the fire, people begin to relax incrementally. Shoulders drop, breathing deepens. The hardest part of the day is over. A child leans against their mother, eyes already heavy. An older man stretches his legs toward the fire, seeking heat for joints that never stop aching. Someone makes a brief comment, something about tomorrow's weather, a prediction based on tonight's clouds. A few people nod. Someone else mentions a neighbor's pig that escaped earlier, causing a brief commotion before being recaptured. A tired smile appears on a few faces. These small stories, these minor disruptions to routine, are the entertainment here. There are no books to read. Most people here can't read anyway. No games or devices, just conversation when energy allows. Just being present with others, sharing warmth and space. The fire crackles, wood shifts, sending up small showers of sparks that disappear into the smoke. The light it provides is dim, casting dancing shadows across faces and walls. This is the only light you'll have. Candles exist but are expensive, saved for critical needs. Most evenings are spent in this firelight, this intimate glow that barely pushes back the darkness. As night deepens, the world outside becomes different, more mysterious, more threatening. The darkness beyond the door is absolute. No streetlights. No neighboring windows glowing warmly, just blackness, complete and total. Within that darkness, anything might exist. Animals that could harm you. People who might steal from you. Things that medieval minds populate the night with. Spirits, demons, creatures from folklore that feel as real as the wolves that occasionally appear at the village's edge. No one goes outside without reason after dark. Doors are secured, not with modern locks, but with simple bars. Thick pieces of wood that slot into place, preventing the door from opening inward. It's not sophisticated security, but it's something. A barrier between inside and outside. Between known and unknown. Children are counted, accounted for, kept close. Animals are secured in their pens, checked one final time. The fire is banked carefully. Arranged to last through the night without burning dangerously or dying completely. This is the evening ritual. These small acts of preparation that stand between you and the vulnerabilities of darkness. Conversation fades as exhaustion wins. People rise stiffly, moving toward their sleeping areas. There are no separate bedrooms. Everyone sleeps in this single room. Privacy doesn't exist in the way you've known it. Bodies, functions, intimacy. All of it happens in shared space. This is normal. This is how it's always been. You find your sleeping mat again? That flattened straw pad on hard earth. It hasn't improved since morning. If anything, it's worse. Cold now, damp from the day's humidity, offering even less cushioning than before. But you lie down anyway. Your body doesn't care about comfort anymore. It cares about rest. About cessation of movement. About sleep. And sleep comes. Not peacefully, not comfortably, but inevitably. Your consciousness fades, pulled under by exhaustion so complete that even the discomfort can't keep you awake. The night is not peaceful. Even in sleep, you sense this. Your rest is shallow, interrupted by sounds and sensations that penetrate your unconsciousness. A cough from across the room, harsh and prolonged. The scrape of something outside, an animal probably. But in the dark, certainty is impossible. Cold air finding gaps in the walls, settling over your exposed face. The itch of parasites that never sleep. You drift in and out, never fully resting, never fully waking. This is how everyone sleeps here. In fragments, in shallow cycles. The body tries to recover, but the environment won't fully allow it. Somewhere in the deep night, you wake more completely. Not from fear, but from pain. Your back has seized up, muscles cramping from the combination of hard labor and harder sleeping surface. You shift position carefully, trying not to disturb others, trying to find an angle that hurts less. There isn't one. Every position has its own discomfort. You settle for different pain rather than less pain. In the darkness, you hear breathing. Multiple sources, multiple rhythms, some steady and deep, others labored, catching, struggling. That cough again. It's been persistent for days. You suddenly remember hearing it yesterday morning too. In your world, a cough like that would mean a doctor's visit, medication, antibiotics if needed. Here, it means watching, waiting, hoping it doesn't get worse. Illness in medieval life is a constant shadow. With poor nutrition, inadequate shelter, communal living, and no understanding of germ theory, sickness spreads easily and strikes frequently. A simple cold can become serious. A minor infection can kill. The human body fights these battles alone with only its immune system and whatever folk remedies the community has accumulated. Some of those remedies help. Honey has antibacterial properties, though no one here knows why. Certain herbs reduce inflammation or pain. Willow bark tea, if anyone remembers to use it, contains compounds similar to modern aspirin. But much of medieval medicine is useless or actively harmful. Bloodletting weakens sick bodies. Poultices made from questionable ingredients introduce infection. Prayers are offered alongside treatments because divine intervention feels as likely to work as anything else. And often, people simply endure. They lie in the darkness, feverish or aching or struggling to breathe, and they wait. Sometimes they recover, sometimes they don't. The randomness of survival is accepted as God's will, as fate, as something beyond human control or understanding. You think about the person coughing. You don't know them well. Relationships here are complicated, familial structures extended and interconnected in ways that aren't immediately clear to you. But you know they're suffering. You know everyone in this room can hear them suffering. And you know no one can really help. Someone might offer them water in the morning. Someone might brew a tea from herbs kept dried for such purposes. But fundamentally, the coughing person is alone with their illness. Their body will win or lose this fight with minimal outside assistance. This helplessness pervades medieval life. So many things happen that can't be controlled. Weather destroys crops, and you can only accept it. Disease strikes, and you can only hope. Accidents occur, and you can only adapt. The lack of control over fundamental aspects of existence creates a particular psychological state, a blend of stoicism, fatalism, an intense focus on the small things that can be controlled. You can't control whether you get sick, but you can work hard when you're healthy. You can't control the weather, but you can prepare as best you're able. You can't control death, but you can fulfill your obligations while alive. This mentality isn't philosophical choice. It's psychological adaptation to reality. The alternative, constantly raging against circumstances you can't change, would be exhausting and pointless. So, acceptance becomes survival strategy. As you lie awake in the darkness, you become aware of other sounds. The fire, reduced to embers, occasionally pops softly. Outside, wind moves through trees, branches creaking. Something scurries across the roof. Probably rodents living in the thatch, which is common and basically unavoidable. An owl calls in the distance. These sounds would terrify you in your previous life, alone in darkness. Here, they're almost comforting. They're known sounds, expected sounds. The sounds of a world that, while harsh, operates according to patterns you're beginning to recognize. The unknown is more frightening than the difficult. As long as the sounds remain familiar, you can rest. Time passes, unmeasurable in the darkness. Eventually, you drift back towards sleep. Your body demands it. Tomorrow will come regardless of how rested you feel. Work will need to be done. The cycle will continue. So sleep claims you again, pulling you down into that shallow, interrupted rest that passes for recovery here. The gray light returns. your eyes open, though you resist it. Sleep was insufficient. Your body hasn't recovered. But morning doesn't care. The same sounds begin again. Stirring, coughing. The animals waking. Someone adds wood to the embers, coaxing fire back to life. Smoke fills the upper room again. You sit up, and your body catalogs its complaints. Back worse than yesterday. Hands raw, the blisters now open wounds that sting with every movement. Muscles so sore that even small motions hurt. But you stand anyway. Because everyone else is standing. Because the day is beginning. Because in this world, your discomfort is irrelevant to the demands being made. The morning routine repeats. Bread, dark and dense. Ale, weak and sour. The minimal breakfast that provides just enough fuel to begin labor. You step outside into another day that will be almost identical to yesterday. Same fields, same tools, same endless, body-breaking work. As you walk toward the fields again, you understand something profound. This isn't a bad day. This isn't unusual or particularly difficult. This is just how it is. Every day, for years, for decades, for entire lifetimes. The people around you have lived this way since childhood and will continue until their bodies finally give out. There is no vacation, no retirement, no period of rest and recovery. Just work, interrupted only by illness, injury, or death. The psychological weight of this realization is heavy. In your previous life, even difficult situations were temporary. Hard jobs could be quit. Bad circumstances could be changed. There was always the possibility of something better. Here, there is no something better. This is it. This is life in its entirety. And yet, people continue. Not happily, not enthusiastically, but steadily, with a kind of grim endurance that you're beginning to understand. They continue because continuation is the only option. Because stopping means dying. Because somewhere deep in human nature is a drive to survive, to persist, even when conditions are brutal. You reach your strip of land, pick up your tool, bend forward into that position that will become agonizing within the hour, and begin again. Because this is what humans do. We endure. We adapt. We find meaning in small things when large meanings are unavailable. We survive. Even when survival is all we can manage. Days blur together. One morning becomes indistinguishable from the next. Your body begins to adapt, slowly and painfully. The blisters on your hands burst, reform, then finally callus over, creating thick protective layers. Your back still hurts, but you learn to work through it, to position your body in ways that minimize the pain. Your endurance increases incrementally. The work that destroyed you on the first day becomes merely exhausting by the end of the first week. You are becoming medieval, not by choice, but by necessity. Your body is transforming to meet the demands placed on it. Your mind is adjusting to, in ways both subtle and profound. The constant planning that characterized your previous life fades. There's no point planning here. Tomorrow will be like today. Next week will be like this week. Your mental focus narrows to the immediate, to the task in front of you, to the next meal, to the present moment, because the present moment is all you can handle. This creates a strange kind of peace, actually. Not happiness, but a reduction in anxiety. When you can't control or change your circumstances, when the future holds no possibility of improvement, the pressure to improve evaporates. You stop striving. Stop yearning. Stop comparing your current state to some imagined better state. You simply exist, day by day, breath by breath. There's liberation in this, perversely. The absence of choice means the absence of choice anxiety. The absence of advancement possibilities means the absence of advancement pressure. You work because you work. You endure because you endure. It simply is. The medieval peasant psychology is foreign to modern minds, shaped by narratives of progress, self-improvement, and unlimited potential. But it's functional, it's adaptive. It allows people to maintain sanity in circumstances that would break someone expecting more from life. You notice how community functions here. Help is offered, but strategically. If someone is briefly unable to work due to injury, neighbors assist, knowing they might need the same help someday. But if someone becomes chronically unable to contribute, support becomes minimal. The community cannot afford dead weight. Resources are too scarce. Everyone must pull their portion of the collective burden. This sounds cruel by modern standards, but it's not cruelty. It's mathematics. The equation is simple. Total resources divided by total people equals survival or starvation. If one person doesn't contribute but continues consuming, everyone's portion shrinks. And when portions are already minimal, shrinking them further means death. So the community makes hard choices, not maliciously, not happily, but necessarily. You watch an elderly man who can no longer work the fields. He sits outside his dwelling most days, mending tools, watching children, doing small tasks within his capability. He's fed, but less than the working adults. He's cared for, but not prioritized. His value now comes from accumulated wisdom, from memory of past events, from the small contributions he can still make. When he can no longer offer even that, when he becomes purely dependent, his prospects will diminish further. This is understood by everyone, including him. He doesn't protest or demand. He accepts his position in the hierarchy of utility. Because protesting would change nothing. Because this is how it's always been. Children, too, exist within this calculus. They're valued, yes. They represent the future, the continuation of the family line, the next generation of workers. But they're also resource drains until they become productive. Infant mortality is extraordinarily high. Perhaps a third of children die before age 5, from disease, malnutrition, accidents, causes that are often mysterious and always devastating. Parents grieve, but they cannot grieve for long. The surviving children need care. Work continues. Life continues. Some historians argue that high infant mortality created emotional distance between parents and young children, that parents couldn't afford to become too attached to children who might not survive. Others argue that parents loved their children just as intensely. They simply had to function despite repeated losses. Both are probably true. Love exists here. But love is tempered by pragmatism, by the knowledge that attachment brings pain when loss is so common. You witness this one evening. A woman returns from the fields carrying a child who's clearly ill, fevered, listless, struggling to breathe. She sits by the fire, holding the child, her face expressionless. Others glance at the child, then away. Someone offers a tea made from herbs. Someone else suggests a poultice. But mostly, people give space, because they know what everyone knows. Sometimes children recover, sometimes they don't. And which outcome occurs is beyond human control. So they wait. The woman rocks the child gently, singing something soft and wordless. It's not a lullaby exactly, more like a melody that human mothers have probably been humming to sick children for thousands of years. A sound that offers comfort even when healing is impossible. Days pass, the child survives, the fever breaks. Relief is quiet and brief. Everyone returns to their routines, because routines are what keep the community functioning. The close call is not discussed extensively. It's filed away mentally with all the other close calls, all the other near losses that have been survived. You realize that medieval people live in a perpetual state of low-level trauma. Loss is constant. Danger is constant. Uncertainty is constant. But overt emotional expression of these realities is minimal, because expressing fear or grief requires energy, and energy is needed for work. So emotions are compressed, simplified, contained. Joy exists but is muted. Sorrow exists but is brief. Everything is functional. Everything serves survival. Time passes in ways you stop measuring. Weeks become months. The work changes with the seasons but never stops. Spring brings planting. Endless days of breaking earth, sowing seed, praying for rain but not too much rain. Your world narrows to soil and seed and hope. Summer brings growth and maintenance, weeding constantly, watching for pests, praying for sun, but not too much sun. Your world becomes green and growing things that must be protected. Autumn brings harvest, the most critical time. Everything depends on these weeks. Work becomes even more intense, more urgent. Every hand is needed. Every daylight hour is used. The entire year's survival condenses into this brief window when crops must be gathered before weather destroys them. You work until you physically cannot continue. Then, you rest briefly and work more. The harvest determines everything. Good harvest means relative security through winter. Adequate harvest means careful rationing and anxiety. Poor harvest means hunger. Failed harvest means death. You experience your first medieval harvest, and the pressure is unlike anything you've known. Every bundle of grain matters. Every root vegetable pulled from the ground matters. Waste is unthinkable. Loss is catastrophic. When the harvest is finally complete, there's a brief celebration, not elaborate. Just a communal meal with slightly more food than usual. Maybe some ale that's less watered down. Maybe a rare piece of meat if an animal was slaughtered for the occasion. People smile, but the smiles are tired. The relief is real but temporary. Because now comes winter, and winter is when the true test begins. The cold arrives gradually, then completely. The dwelling that was uncomfortable in summer becomes genuinely dangerous in winter. The gaps in the walls that were merely drafty now become life-threatening. Cold air pours through constantly. The fire burns larger now, consuming wood at alarming rates. Wood that had to be gathered throughout the warmer months. Wood that must last until spring. Every log burned is a calculation. Warmth now versus warmth later. Comfort today versus survival in February. You learn to tolerate cold that you never thought possible. The interior of the dwelling hovers just above freezing on the coldest nights. You sleep in all your clothing, under every available blanket, pressed against other bodies for shared warmth. The animals are even more crucial now. Their body heat is the difference between tolerable cold and potentially fatal cold. The goat, the chickens, they're not just livestock anymore. They're heating systems that also provide occasional food. Mornings are brutal. Rising from the pile of bodies and blankets into the frozen air requires willpower. The fire has usually died during the night, despite careful banking. Someone must restart it, hands numb, breath visible in thick clouds. That someone is often you now. You've been absorbed into the household's rhythm. You have tasks, responsibilities. You're no longer an observer. You're a participant, a necessary part of the survival mechanism. Food becomes increasingly monotonous. The variety of summer, fresh vegetables, occasional fruit, diverse meals, disappears. Winter is stored grain, dried peas, root vegetables from the cellar, carefully rationed, occasionally preserved meat, salted or smoked, doled out in tiny portions. The meals that barely satisfied in summer now seem abundant in memory. You're hungry constantly, not starving. The harvest was adequate, but hungry in a way that never fully goes away. Your body is consuming its own reserves. You lose weight you didn't have to lose. Your face becomes more angular. Your clothing hangs looser. Everyone looks like this by late winter. Gaunt, worn, waiting for spring. Illness strikes more frequently in winter. The cold, the malnutrition, the close living quarters, all create perfect conditions for disease. Respiratory infections spread through the dwelling. People cough, fever, struggle. Some recover, some don't. You catch something. It starts as a scratchy throat, becomes a cough, then fever. For several days, you're useless. Lying on your pallet, shivering despite the fire, aching in every joint. Someone brings you water. Someone shares a bit of broth. But mostly, you endure alone. Your body fights the infection with diminished resources. Malnourished, exhausted, stressed. The outcome is uncertain. You're genuinely unsure if you'll recover. Death from minor illnesses is common enough that everyone knows it's possible. You think about dying here, in this cold, smoky dwelling, far from everything you knew, in a time that isn't yours. The thought is oddly clarifying. What matters? What has meaning when death is close? The answers surprise you. Not achievements, not possessions, not status. Just simple things. Warmth, food, the presence of others. The possibility of seeing another spring. These are what matter. These are what have always mattered. Everything else is decoration. You recover. Slowly, weakly, but definitively. The fever breaks. The cough diminishes. You're able to stand, to eat, to eventually return to light work. The experience has changed something in you, made you smaller somehow, more humble, more grateful for basic things. You understand now why medieval people were so religious. When you're this close to death this often, when your survival depends on factors beyond your control, faith becomes rational. Prayer is the only tool available for the uncontrollable. So you pray, not because you necessarily believe, but because doing something feels better than doing nothing. And who knows? Maybe it helps. You can't prove it doesn't. The thaw is gradual. One day you notice the air is slightly less brutal. The next day, ice that had been permanent for months begins to melt. Water drips from the roof, mud returns deep and thick, but mud means warmth is coming. The first green shoots appear in the fields, not crops yet. Just weeds, grass, wild plants. But green. Color returning to a world that was brown and white and gray for so long. People emerge from dwellings more readily. Faces turn toward the sun, soaking up warmth that's been absent for months. Energy returns incrementally. Not abundance, but enough to face the coming work. Because spring means planting season is approaching. The cycle beginning again. You've survived your first medieval winter. Not everyone did. The elderly man who sat outside last autumn didn't make it to spring. He died quietly one night in mid-February. His body was buried quickly. The ground was barely thawed enough to dig. A brief prayer was said. Work continued. His absence is noted but not dwelled upon. This is how it works here. Death is integrated into life. Not celebrated, not ignored. Just acknowledged and processed quickly, so the living can continue. You understand now with complete clarity what medieval life actually is. It's not the castles and knights and pageantry that populate modern imagination. It's this: daily labor, constant hunger, cold and discomfort, illness and injury, loss and grief, interspersed with small moments of relief, connection, simple pleasure. It's not romantic. It's not adventurous. It's just hard. Relentlessly, exhaustingly hard. And yet humans live this way for centuries, generations upon generations, enduring these conditions. Not because they were stronger or more virtuous than modern people, but because they had no alternative. And because human beings are extraordinarily resilient, when resilience is the only option. As spring progresses and work begins again in earnest, you find yourself reflecting. You've been here long enough now that you've stopped expecting to wake up in your own time. This is your reality now. These people are your community. This work is your life. What have you learned? First, that comfort is not natural. The ease of modern life, climate control, abundant food, medical care, leisure time, is a historical aberration. an incredibly recent development that required centuries of technological and social progress. For most of human history, life was like this: hard, uncertain, focused entirely on meeting basic needs. Second, that humans adapt. Your body, which seemed incapable of this level of labor initially, has become surprisingly functional. Your hands are permanently calloused. Your muscles have developed in strange ways. Your pain tolerance has increased dramatically. You can work for hours in discomfort that would have seemed unbearable months ago. Adaptation is powerful. Given no alternative, humans adjust to remarkable extremes. Third, that meaning doesn't require abundance. These people have almost nothing by your previous standards. No entertainment, no luxury, no comfort, no security. Yet life continues to have meaning. Relationships matter. Small kindnesses matter. The change of seasons matters. Survival itself becomes meaningful when it's difficult. Fourth, that hierarchies emerge from necessity, not malice. The rigid social structures here aren't arbitrary cruelty. They're organizational solutions to survival challenges. Someone must make decisions. Work must be coordinated. Resources must be allocated. In the absence of surplus, these structures become non-negotiable. Fifth, that freedom is contextual. The freedom you valued in your previous life, choice, mobility, self-expression, is impossible here. But different freedoms exist. Freedom from excessive planning, freedom from status anxiety, freedom from the pressure to optimize and improve. In accepting that life is what it is, there's a strange liberation. Sixth, that humans are both cruel and kind. You've seen both. The pragmatic cruelty of withholding resources from those who can't contribute, the genuine kindness of sharing food with the sick. Both coexist because both are necessary. Survival requires calculation, but humanity requires compassion. Communities that lose either one fail. Finally, that this experience is humbling. You came from a world of abundance and opportunity. You thought you understood hardship. You didn't. Not really. This is hardship, and it puts everything in perspective. The complaints that occupied your mind in your previous life seem absurd now. Being inconvenienced isn't suffering. Being uncomfortable isn't hardship. Being bored isn't deprivation. This is what those words actually mean. As I bring this journey to a close, I want to return to something I asked at the beginning. Where are you? Right now, as you hear these words, where are you physically? Are you in a warm room? Is there food nearby, available whenever you want it? Are you comfortable, safe, free from immediate threats? If the answer is yes, and for most people listening it probably is, then you're living in conditions that medieval peasants literally couldn't imagine. You have access to resources, comforts, and securities that would seem miraculous to them. This isn't to make you feel guilty. It's to create perspective, to remind you that the baseline of human existence for most of history was nothing like what we experience today. Our complaints are real. Our struggles are valid. But they exist in a context of abundance that's unprecedented. If this journey into medieval life has affected you, if it's changed how you think about your own circumstances, I'd love to hear about it. Leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. Tell me what surprised you most. What made you uncomfortable? What you're grateful for now that you weren't consciously grateful for before? And if you found value in this deep exploration of historical reality, help me create more content like this. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Share this with someone who might find it interesting. These actions might seem small, but they directly enable me to spend time researching and creating these immersive historical experiences. We live in extraordinary times, times that would be incomprehensible to our ancestors. Understanding where we came from, what they endured, how they survived, that understanding enriches our present. It makes us more grateful, more resilient, more aware of how precious and precarious human progress actually is. Thank you for taking this journey with me, for spending this time in a world that's harsh and unforgiving and brutally honest about what survival actually requires. Until next time, take a moment to appreciate your warmth, your food, your comfort. They're not guaranteed, they're gifts. Gifts that countless generations worked, suffered, and died to make possible. Don't take them for granted.